Folks, no, I'm not calm. I'm deeply upset still about how this past week has evolved. And the election, we can sit here, we can go, oh, look at the mail-in ballots in New Jersey. Look at the suspicious voting patterns. Look at the 75,000 people turned away in Pennsylvania in the polling booths. Look at all. It's a conspiracy against Republicans. Okay, fine, but we didn't show up. Republicans didn't make it to the polls. And behind the scenes of all of this, right, are a couple of troubling concerns. And we've outlined them this week, and I just want to tackle them again, if I may. Number one, we absolutely are not a party with any kind of viability when Trump isn't on the ballot. We are not a Republican party. We're the party of Trump. So enough is enough. Embrace it or die. Number two, congressional Republicans as a brand suck donkey, okay? I don't know how else to put it. These congressional Republicans, I mean, this is, name a congressional Republican you're excited about. Because, well, not leadership. That's the key point. Leadership. Excited about John Thune? Hell, half the country doesn't even have any idea who he is. More than half. But what we do know is that we've got the White House, we've got the Senate, we've got Congress. The Democrats keep reminding us of this. You guys have all the power, and yet we can't even reopen the government because most Republican senators are deeply opposed to, for example, eliminating the filibuster. These are people who embrace losing. Losing is actually good for them. They've been in Washington so long, they don't care if the country goes to hell. In fact, Trump is a threat to them. So if they can assist the Democrats in stopping Trump, better for them. They don't like being second fiddle in Washington. Actually, these Republican senators, some of them, would prefer that Trump not be in the White House, would actually vote for an impeachment if they could do it all over again, and would love nothing more than a Democrat administration in 2028 coming into Washington and bringing back things as they were, which they, in many cases, would prefer. And you and I, we instinctively understand this. We know this. We get it. And against this backdrop, we're still here talking about these idiots in our party that have done nothing to promote the vote. Again, you don't have any political power if you don't win elections. Let's put that another way. Your ideas can be the best ideas for solving everything in the country, but if you do not have political power, none of that's going to come to pass. Your plan won't ever see the light of day. Trump has shown the way. You can win, and you can win against all odds. You can win decisively, without apology. You can win. You can crush the mainstream media, the Democratic establishment, the entire deep state, Republican, Democrat, all of it. And Trump did it. Now, he's, of course, a remarkable guy, and he's got the political instincts of perhaps some of the greatest political instincts that we have seen in our nation's 250-year history. But there it is. I mean, we need to start embracing those instincts and following those instincts. And the thing that absolutely gets me is these fake pseudo-intellectuals running around pretending to be the guardians of ideological purity in our party, who are, and I'm saying this, who are getting stuck. Well, they're not even they're getting us stuck in the mud deliberately. Now, I bet you, what do you think I mean? Well, I'll tell you. Tucker Carlson spent the last month before the election doing nothing more than stirring up SHI, you know what, in our movement. Did he once promote getting out the vote? Did he once tell Republicans in New Jersey to vote for the Republican candidates in Virginia? Did he do anything to actually stop Zahir Mamdani in New York City, to stop an avowed socialist from taking over the largest, most important city in the United States? Did he go to California and get Republicans to come out and vote against Prop 50? No, he did none of that, because Tucker only cares about Tucker. I'm done sugarcoating it. And I don't know, you saw the Megyn Kelly interview where she had Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, listen, phenomenal. I hate to admit, he just nailed it, because he actually at one point in the interview pulls out his phone and has text messages between him and Tucker Carlson precisely about the election, where Tucker reached out to him, to Ben Shapiro, and said, hey, let's work together. This is in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and after the two of them had met after a bit of a falling out, had met at the memorial service. And Tucker Carlson said to Ben Shapiro, and Shapiro's got the receipts, right? He's got the text where all of this is there, and says to him, well, listen, we should band together. This Mamdani guy, we got to stop him. Democratic Socialist America is an existential threat to the United States. So let's kind of set things aside. And Ben Shapiro, being the bigger person, said yes, agreed. And he reached out to Tucker multiple times, and Tucker never took him up on it because he was too busy having conversations with retards like Fuentes. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm just so done with this. And I'll give you exactly everything you need to know about this. It's not even about Israel. It's not even about Jews. I don't care. Fuentes is a performance artist. He is no different than radical leftists. They throw stuff out there. They say outrageous things. They claim there are 300 genders. You can't possibly believe there are all these. You can't believe the stuff. They go around saying a man, a woman is a man, can be a man simply by declaring himself a woman, or whatever the hell they say. That's what the left does. They disassociate from reality. America is the biggest slave trading, country in the history of the world. I'm completely ignoring the Arab world and Africa and all that. I'm just, there's just historical, deliberate, ahistorical, references that aren't based in any form of truth. And Fuentes does the same thing, and he does it, and it gets him attention. And now we have someone who has an actual voice like Tucker does, and he's promoting this in the middle of an election cycle. I mean, I could see why a lot of Republicans are like, "What am I like Tucker. He seems to be kind of against the Republican Party. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's getting weird for me. I'm going to stay home." And my point is that enough people did that at scale, which makes what Tucker is doing dangerous. It's dangerous because if we lose in the midterms, everything we sought to do and fix and turn around in 2024 could be for naught. It terrifies me. And then, right, so I'll get to this when we come back. So, Megyn Kelly, who I love, I adore Megyn Kelly. And by the way, I know where she's coming from. She has a difficulty criticizing Tucker Carlson because they're friends. Tucker Carlson had Megyn Kelly's back on many occasions. Tucker Carlson, whatever his current situation is and whatever he's doing right now is not something that Megyn Kelly feels comfortable criticizing because Megyn Kelly isn't a sociopath. And I appreciate that. So I can explain that. I can explain. And this, by the way, as a side note, why when you do what we do here, talking on the radio, talking on social media, being a voice for the movement, you can't put personal friendships ahead of your of what's right, of your views. And you hear it in Megyn Kelly says, well, I just don't want to get involved in that. But you have to get involved. You had Candace Owens literally telling people that we shouldn't go and vote until we get to the bottom of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And in the same breath, virtually claims that Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, was involved somehow in Charlie Kirk's death. This is what a large swath of so-called conservative discourse was in the lead up to this important election. These people are circus clowns. They're not going to get us anywhere. In fact, I'm convinced they're deliberately, Tucker included, deliberately sabotaging the Make America Great Again movement, Donald Trump's presidency, so that the country can go to hell and more people will tune into their podcasts in times of despair and times of darkness. If I could give up every bit of ratings that I have to save the country, my God, I would do it like that. I'm fired up. All right, I've got all the receipts. I'll play it here when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. More of the What's Right show powered by Sam and Ash Injury Law after this.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, good to be with you. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Okay, so this was, I'm going to play the video here because if Republicans are going to win, we need to stop a defending, listening to, or in any way, shape, or form giving oxygen to the sideshows that are distracting us from electoral domination. That's it. That's what matters. Thursday, Jacksonville, Florida, the Megyn Kelly tour. Ben Shapiro joined Megyn Kelly. It was phenomenal. And Ben Shapiro laid this out, speaking about Tucker Carlson. I mentioned this in the last segment. Tucker Carlson, in the lead up to the election on Tuesday, didn't really talk about the election. Didn't talk about Zohran Mamdani. He didn't talk about crazy Democrats that were running in New Jersey, in Virginia, Prop 50, power grab by Gavin Newsom. None of this got mentioned. Instead, he was busy talking to insane people like Nick Fuentes. And Ben Shapiro lays this out because, in a critical point here in the conversation that he and Megyn Kelly are having on stage, Megyn Kelly comes to Tucker's defense. So here's how it started.
I say this with sadness because Tucker used to be, I think, a deeply important part of the conservative push to win. The number of times that Tucker Carlson has mentioned Zohran Mamdani since October 5th on his show is once. And it was in the context of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson talking about the appeal of Zohran Mamdani. Just by way of contrast, not because I'm a perfect representative here, but because you've talked about Zohran Mamdani a lot. A lot of us have. Since October 5th, I did 17 separate shows on Zohran Mamdani, including 4 in the last week before the election. Okay, because when you're orienting against the left, you really should orient against the left.
Exactly. That's what I do here. How many times I've been talking about Zohar Mamdani before, a lot of people were talking about him. I'm not asking for a pat on the back. I'm just saying I understand. I understand issues sometimes before they even develop or become real issues. And that's why you listen to this program. So anyway, then the conversation goes, well, I really just, again, Megyn Kelly, I understand it. She's friends with Tucker. She's not a bad person. She doesn't want to badmouth him, and she doesn't want to become the person that piles on. So a conversation moves over to Candace Owens, and here comes a stunning admission.
I think that what Candace Owens is doing right now is evil. It is evil what she is doing right now. Okay, and I say that again.
But what?
Because
like I didn't opine on whether it's evil or not, but my position is it's really none of my business. And
why is it? But I have a question. Why is it none of your business? I mean, you comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erica of?
Yes.
Of murdering her own husband?
She's accusing TPUSA insiders and other members of the right wing, including Seth Dillon, of being involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, yes.
Okay. Like I said, I don't take in that content, which is an honest statement. I don't have time to watch Candace's show.
I believe you. But the point that I'm making is that
what I understand
friendship
Candace
should
to
not,
have
in
been
our
doing.
business, I think it's important. Listen,
Candace
friendship
and I are
should not
friends.
trump.
We don't even know each other.
I understand, but even with Tucker, friendship should not trump our manifest requirement to speak out when people do and say things that are both detrimental to conservatism and morally wrong.
This is right. He's absolutely 100% correct. Now, I want to go back. I like to go back to the sources. Here's what defenders of Tucker Carlson will say. That he's just asking people questions. Like, that's all he's doing. He just wants to get different viewpoints out there. Now, I'll tell you exactly when it comes to Israel, very straightforward for me. I believe currently in 2025, going on 2026, we in the West are locked in an existential battle against the Islamists who have banded together with the radicals, with the socialists, and are looking to overthrow Western civilization, capitalism, society as we know it, for their benefit. Now, when the revolution overthrow happens, it's not going to result in a socialist republic because the Islamists will murder all the socialists. They will turn on their current allies. And when they do, we're all going to be living in an Islamic caliphate. I'm not looking forward to that. And I will do everything in my power to stop it. You know who happens to be on my side of that issue? Israel. So yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's basically how simple I put it, okay? And everything else beyond that is an overcomplication. No, our country's not perfect. No, Israel's not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we're allies in a very important fight. But let's set aside the subject of Israel. Let's set aside the subject of anti-Semitism for a minute, although I think it's important. I think we can all agree that Joseph Stalin, for example, is bad. This is what happened on that interview. This is Nick Fuentes talking to Tucker Carlson. This is why I think that Tucker is just a dumb, idiotic guy.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was an admirer. But we don't need to go into that. I guess.
Well, that's okay. Let's get back. We'll circle back to that.
It was weird because the reason I mentioned that, it was almost like because I woke up that day and I was like, oh, it's December 18th. And I was just like very acutely aware of like today's like a strange day. This is the day that the attempt happened.
Okay, that was Ryan Ruth, attempted assassination of Trump in Florida. I love Stalin. And by the way, Tucker does not circle back. Now, if this is how he interviews everybody who has an opinion, that's fine. But we played it at the time. We played his fight against Ted Cruz. Remember this?
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not
okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert
exactly.
on Iran.
You're a
exactly.
Exactly.
That's Tucker knows how to fight when he wants to fight, but then gives ample air and opportunity to people who are open admirers of Joseph Stalin. Screw this guy. That interview with Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz, it really gets my goat. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of Ted Cruz. I criticize Ted Cruz here and there. But Ted Cruz is someone who has won elections multiple times and has voted multiple times for the Trump agenda. Ted Cruz is, love him or hate him, a conservative, a reliable conservative vote in the Senate. So Tucker Carlson goes hammer and tongs after Ted Cruz and then puts on little kid gloves when talking to Nick Fuentes, who is a clown, a complete clown, says, "Oh, I'm a fan of Joseph Stalin." Mass murderer. Probably, I think it's historically accurate, Robbie, to say that Joseph Stalin is responsible for more deaths in the 20th century than any other one single individual. But regardless, right? The number is up there. It's 100 million, 150 million, whatever it is. Depending on how you do the math, but it's a horrific human being, somebody who brought suffering to my family, and I'm not even gonna have the argument here. I'm falling into the trap. There's just objective truth, and by the way, we conservatives believe in objective truth. This is another important point. What the circus freaks like to do, and it's a distraction to the political endgame of saving the country. What they like to do is throw things out there that, just to be controversial. Let me give you an example. This is the entire Candace Owens, Erica Kirk was part of the cover up and responsible perhaps for the death of Charlie Kirk. So here are some of the things, and I have it here right now so I'm reading it exactly. Candace Owens rhetorically asked what kind of widow would not want the truths of her husband murder to come out. Now she was criticizing, I guess, the narrative report there that has Tyler Robinson as the lone suspect. Candace Owens went on to accuse Turning Point USA, TPUSA, of being involved in an inside job. Now, who became quickly the CEO of TPUSA? Erica Kirk. Where are you going with this, Candace? This is insane stuff. And then, of course, suggested Erica lacked sufficient interest in uncovering the truth, the real truth. Now, I'll tell you, the best part about this is that in the lead up to the election, Candace Owens actually told people that she wouldn't be voting. She couldn't possibly vote in the election. Why would anybody vote in the election until we find out answers to these important, and my opinion is completely made up, crazy questions? These people are dangerous to the movement, to saving the country, to fighting against democratic socialists. This is just insane stuff, and I have to talk about it again. Frustrates the hell out of me, but I'm going to. By the way, Erica Kirk, for what it's worth, this was a tough interview. Tough interview to watch. It was just rough. Fox News, this was describing the scene with Jesse Waters, describing the scene of getting to the hospital, because it was first reported that Erica and the kids were present, but apparently she was in Phoenix at the time and had to quickly get herself to Utah. And he's there in the hospital, and so this just was, I'm playing this because this isn't just carnival tactics. This is like deeply hurtful stuff. These people do not deserve any oxygen whatsoever.
Get into the room. One of the law enforcement guys comes in. It's very sweet, but what do you say to someone whose husband just was assassinated so publicly? I said, I've been doing this for 30-some years. He said, I will never tell you that you cannot see your husband. He said, but I, in my professional opinion, think that you should wait to see him once he's at the mortuary. Because I don't think you want to see him like this. The room got quiet because half the room knew it's probably a good idea. And the other half of the room was like, there is no way she's listening to you right now. And I responded back to him and I said, with all due respect, sir, I said, I want to see what they did to my husband. And I want to give him a kiss because I didn't get to give him a kiss this morning. And I said the same thing to the doctor. When the doctor came in, I said, I want to see my husband. He said, I'll make sure that happens. And I did. And I got to see him. And when we walked into that room, he still looks so alive. Because he just, and I'm just so glad I saw him, because you know this, when you see someone pass at the mortuary, they never look the same when they're at the mortuary. They have this awful makeup and they're cold, and he was still warm and his eyes were slightly open. But it was so powerful, Jesse.
This is tough to watch. Why would we listen or give oxygen to someone who's claiming that Erica has played a role in any of this happening, that did this deliberately to seize power over TPUSA or whatever? I don't know. And you know who was clear-eyed about all of this? You know who was leading our movement to the polls? You know who was, unlike Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, focused on winning? Charlie Kirk. Listen to him talk about Mamdani. This is back in July, in the summer, as this Mamdani show was starting to take off after the primary.
Not everyone, but most people are missing the point of really what this is. This is yet another distress signal by young people to say, hey, if you're not going to fix our life economically, we're going to get very radical politically. Now, let's take a step back. President Trump won the youth vote in many states across the country, in many battleground states. Now, Tucker, 12, 13 years ago when I started Turning Point, if you would have told me that a Republican running for the presidency would be winning the youth vote in Michigan and in Arizona, I'd say, no way. It's an incomprehensible accomplishment of what President Trump was able to do. One of the reasons he was able to win younger voters, and younger men, especially in big numbers, is that they were trying to get their leaders' attention. They said, hey, this guy, Donald Trump, he is pledging to go fix our economic anxiety. He is loud. He is going to get your attention. Donald Trump was a distress signal by a lot of young people, especially young men, that were stuck in a credit-centric renter economy. And again, this is what is the rise of Mamdani. It's just another iteration of this, only from the left.
This is exactly right. And he saw this coming. Now, this was after the after the primary. I've been talking about Mamdani before even the primaries. This is just, but explaining why people were supporting Mamdani, explaining why he was popular, and also explaining why it was dangerous for us Republicans to ignore this, that ignoring it, it would cost us politically. These are incredibly wise words from Charlie Kirk that we should heed. And instead here, we're circling our wagons and protecting these idiots among us who are only looking to divide us and distract us. This is not sustainable. It is not a good idea, and this is why I'll continue speaking out about it. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Folks, the Democrats are bringing the country to its knees, meanwhile planning, some among them, a complete destruction of our system as we know it. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. These are dangerous times that we find ourselves in. Now, these plans, at least as to the Democratic Socialists of America, who are fresh off their victory in New York, and their ideas spreading throughout the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi retiring. Chuck Schumer likely will retire as well once this disastrous shutdown fight is over. And they'll be replaced. They'll be replaced by the likes of Zohar Mamdani. And here's what they're talking about. They're not even hiding it. They're not hiding it. They're hosting Zoom calls. They're inviting reporters on these Zoom calls, talking about their plan in New York, and not just in the city of New York, but in New York State, a radical budget that soaks the rich. Read a kind of punitive taxation that is wealth destroying, that goes to the heart of the free market system and looks to drive out productive businesses, individuals, and companies. Here you go.
Now we're going to talk about taxing the rich. We got to do it to win so many of the things that we need. We need it for Zoran's agenda. We need it for society. So I'm going to pass it over to Ariel, one of our chairs of the Tax the Rich campaign, to talk about how we get there.
We raise taxes in New York in the New York State budget, which is a document that's negotiated every spring by both houses of the legislature and the governor. The budget is finalized in April, which means we have just 6 months to build a massive campaign to tax the rich for childcare, fast and free buses, and a city we can afford. We have done it before in 2021. Socialists made big wins, and we can do it again. We can win Zoran's agenda. We can stand up to Trump, and we can deliver real wins for working people. And we will do this together. We will do this as socialists, as DSA.
Look at the poll numbers right now for look at how well Democrats performed. On Tuesday, I'm telling you, across the board, look at how well they performed. And this is an honest to goodness agenda item of the Democratic Party now, behind the scenes. It's not getting, they ran a handful of campaigns on this stuff. But if you look at the polling says, Harrington, CNN, here's a number of the races comparing Kamala Harris's numbers to these off-cycle elections that just happened. It's not good. It's not good news for us.
It's all about the margins, baby. Look, Democratic candidates' margins. In 2024 in New Jersey, Kamala Harris won by 6. What happened on Tuesday? Well, right now, Mikey Sherrill's ahead by 13. That might be 14 very quickly. We're talking about a shift of at least 7 points, upwards of 8. How about in Virginia? We had Kamala Harris winning by 6. What do we have Abigail Spanberger winning by? Winning by 15. We're talking about a shift of about 9 points. If we had, let's say, an average 8-point shift across the board in all the different House seats from the 2024 press result to then what happened in the 2026 House elections, you would be talking about a Democratic gain of about 20 seats, depending on redistricting. So when I see those results on Tuesday night, I see these huge shifts in the Democratic direction. I say, Republican leaders, wake the heck off and have some of what I'm having, because this is a major warning sign.
I agree. I hate to say this. I agree. And we cannot get complacent. It's a real big concern for me. So what's the solution? I mean, this again, the solution is we've got to organize. And one of the critical things in this election, I mean, we are toast if we do not get rid of these mail-in ballots. If we don't get rid of elections, I mean, I saw a guy. Where was this? I got this in my stack of stuff here somewhere. Bear with me, folks. I got to find this because it was such a great. It's just a great example of this. Where did I? Okay. Because there's all these posts right now going through the voter inflation. Look at like New Jersey, the numbers in New Jersey. There's so many more votes. I'll give it to you this way. 50 years or so in each election, go back half a century, 2+ million voters in each election. A winner would get 1.1 to 1.4 million votes. And all of a sudden you have over 3 million voters and the Democrats winning 1.7 million votes. And the point is, there's 400 to 600,000 more mail-in ballots. Is that what you're honestly trying to tell me? Now, we have to do two things: clean up these elections and mobilize the Republican electorate. And I saw somewhere, and I don't have it here, but I saw somewhere a guy in New Jersey saying, look, I don't want to get all hung up on this, but I just walked into my polling place. They did a perfunctory, very basic sort of top level look at my signature. I didn't have to show any ID. I could have been anybody walking in there. My signature looked, by the way, nothing like the signature that they had on record. And I just, he's like, I wonder how is any of this a good idea? And the short answer is it isn't, right? This is a system designed to be open for abuse. So that's where I'm at. Now, the big victory, of course, globally speaking, in New York has gotten attention, and the Trump's least favorite mayor following Mandani is Mr. Khan, Sadiq Khan in London. Trump loves to rail about Sadiq Khan because Khan has turned London into an Islamic caliphate, basically. Here's Sadiq Khan, very excited that a fellow left-wing Islamist has become now the mayor of New York City.
Well, there are many parallels that New York and London have, and there are many parallels that Zohar and I have. And congratulate the city of New York. They've chosen, in a bitterly contested election, hope over fear, unity over division, and I'm already experiencing the ripples of hope and happiness coming from his victory.
All right, there we go. Many parallels between New York and London. This is great. There's an objectively terrible mayor of London is saying now New York is on the same path. Fantastic. Now, what was absolutely heart-wrenching today was a Good Morning Britain TV show. This is not a right-wing show. This is just one of these kind of mainstream puff programs, and they have a veteran on the show. He's 100 years old, and they have we have Veterans Day on Tuesday, but here Great Britain has Remembrance Day on Sunday, and they ask him. The hosts ask this beautiful old man, this World War II veteran, what Remembrance Sunday means to him. Listen to how absolutely heart-wrenching this is.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, though, at this point?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now, It's darn sight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
They fought for their freedom, right? This generation of heroes. And he's looking around and says, I don't even recognize the country I'm in. That's what he's saying. And that's what the left wants. This is the fight. Now it's our turn to fight like the greatest generation fought before us. But it's a different enemy. It's an enemy within. They're dangerous people in our midst who have turned our democratic system against us. And this is why, I'll tell you, this is why we're missing the point, getting hung up on things like conventions in the Senate and the filibuster. We have to clean up these elections. We have to ensure one person, one vote. We have to ensure that non-citizens don't vote. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. And we have to fight socialism. Not abroad, but unfortunately, in our country here, within our own borders. Absolutely terrifying stuff. Sam Mirejovsky here, the What's Right Media Network. Shutdown news when we come back. And some interesting developments there, so I want to get to all of that today. All right, hang tight. Quick break here, top of the hour. Back after this. It would seem to be a completely reasonable and prudent change on Capitol Hill if members of Congress aren't paid during shutdowns. Boy, there would never be any shutdowns, would there? But they're fighting it tooth and nail. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. So here's, I mentioned this the other day, but it's great. Senator Kennedy put forward a proposal. This is a bill to cut pay to members of Congress. Here's him speaking about it on the floor of the Senate.
My first bill, which would say members of Congress can't be paid and don't get back pay even after we end the shutdown. That's called the No Shutdown Paychecks to Politicians Act. I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of my bill, that bill.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. So along comes Rand Paul. Rand Paul, who fights against spending in government, but I guess doesn't like this bill for some reason.
Is there an objection?
I think it's time that instead of closing the government down further, that we begin to open up government. What I will offer is legislation that instead of closing government down further, begins to pay those who are working, pays our soldiers, pays our air traffic controllers, pays everyone who's showing up for work. I think this should become a permanent feature of our government. I think it's disruptive. I think it's unfair. And I think it's wrong that we don't pay the workers that are showing up. But a better way than isolating out different groups and punishing different groups is to actually pay those who are working. And I think we should do this. If we pass this legislation, this would never be a problem again. We're going to run into disagreements in the future. We're going to have times when the government shuts down, but there's no reason that we shouldn't be paying our government workers.
I'm working. I deserve pay. Producer Robbie, you're looking pretty down in the dumps over this. I know you are a huge Rand Paul fan and that this one guts you. It's okay. I'm not going to rub it in. I'm just saying, I thought Rand Paul loves to cut government spending every chance he gets, except when cutting government spending would cut his paycheck. Then he's out. Wouldn't you be, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, let me ask you something. Don't you think that this would get 80% of the vote? A constitutional amendment that would cut congressional pay during a shutdown. Imagine if AOC, it doesn't matter, Rand Paul, whoever, both sides, if they are in the same pain as government employees who aren't getting paid. do you know what I've always advocated for too? I also think that members of Congress should have the same crappy health insurance that the rest of us have. Hey, you want to vote for Obamacare? You don't get a special plan. Screw you. You get the same stuff that we get. You want single payer? Okay. You like, I actually, honestly, if it were up to me, I would have members of Congress treat it the VA. That's, Robbie, what do you think? You want to give our veterans, people that sacrifice for our country, crap medical care? You go to the VA. I mean, it's convenient. It's in Washington. Perfect. Yeah, congressman, your family, you go to the VA, and if you don't like it, then you can go fix the VA. I like our rulers, our governors, to face the same reality pain that the rest of us face. I'm a big proponent of this. So anyway, that was, so here Kennedy gets in and goes, it's not going to pass the House. This is his response.
Would the senator modify his request?
I will not, Mr. President, and I'd like to explain why. I understand Senator Paul is making a good point. What he's saying is, rather than saying, as I am, that nobody else is being paid, so members of Congress shouldn't be paid, I think what Senator Paul is saying, let's pay everybody. That's what I understand him to be saying. And he wants me to agree to that instead of my bill. What Senator Paul is proposing is Senator Ron Johnson's shutdown, no shutdown act that we voted on several times. And I'm for it. I voted for it several times. Here's the problem I have with Senator Paul's proposal of pulling down my bill and going with Senator Johnson's bill. Several reasons. Number one, I'm interested in passing something. I'm not interested in just putting on a show. My bill will pass the House of Representatives, and my bill will be signed by the President. Senator Paul's bill, I can assure you, will not pass the House of Representatives, and President Trump will not sign it.
Well, there you go. So it's not going to happen, Mr. Rand Paul. This is where we're headed now. We got Thanksgiving coming up. There's economic pain. We see flights getting canceled. I don't know if you've seen this in Las Vegas. I think 140 flights or so each day now getting canceled by Southwest, which operates as the largest carrier in and out of Las Vegas. Absolutely, 120 flights is what it is. And it's going to start today. So this is going to be brutal. And I'm convinced the Democrats are doing this to tank the economy. They benefit from economic pain. They benefit from getting people mad. They benefit from this politically. There's some talk right now about a compromise position. And the compromise position is, as I understand it, is to do a 1-year extension on the ACA Obamacare subsidies. So it's 1 year. Okay, so they're just going to kick the can down the road. Again, the reason that it needs subsidies is because Obamacare doesn't work. It's not working. And the same situation will arise 1 year from now. And depending on the makeup of the House and of the Senate, a similar problem will arise where one side, the minority, can withhold critical votes to pass, to get beyond the filibuster, to move to a vote, and to make the budget, get across the finish line. So everybody will get held up again over this. To me, this is just a perpetual problem. And we'll go an entire year without solving the real issues, which is, cleaning up the election and saving the country. This stuff it absolutely terrifies me. So anyway, this is where we are. And And Chris Murphy, like this, Chris Murphy, a senator from Democrat from Kentucky, saying the Democrats can't back down from this because it's going to hurt their brand. Listen.
I think there will be some pretty substantial damage done to a Democratic brand that has been rehabilitated if on the heels of an election in which the people told us to keep fighting, we immediately stop fighting. If we surrender without having gotten anything and we cause a lot of folks in this country who had started to believe in the Democratic Party to retreat again, I worry that it will be hard to sort of get them back up off the mat in time for next fall's election cycle.
Now, there it is. It's all a political stunt, and they got to demonstrate to their voters that they're in it to fight. And it's worked. We got to hand it. I mean, at first it was really not working great out but you got to admit the election results speak for themselves. So I just, all this is just absolutely crazy. Mike Johnson on the counter proposal from the Senate on passing this, the kind of kicking the can down the road. This is his take on it.
But when we say the 1.5 trillion, that is the actual counter offer that they put on paper and filed in the Senate. It is still sitting over there as their counter proposal. 1.5 trillion in new spending. On a 7-week stopgap funding measure. I mean, it's just madness. And included in that, yes, go read the bill. They want almost $200 billion to be returned to health care benefits for illegal aliens. They want to send all these billions of dollars back over to foreign countries for social spending in other countries. They wanted to restore $500 million to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. All these things. And in that proposal, amazingly, shockingly to us, they put it on paper. They want to repeal the $50 billion rural hospital fund that Republicans worked so hard to get signed into law July 4th. So it's just a mishmash of priorities and things that different Democrats are claiming. That illustrates the very point. This was never about one particular issue. They just wanted to show a fight. They wanted to look tough to the Marxist rise in their party. And remember this, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are both New Yorkers, right? We all just saw what happened in New York City. Mamdani is all the rage now, and the young communists are uprising, and that scares the old guard Democrats in Congress. And so they were afraid they'd get a challenge from a Mamdani disciple in their next election cycle. And
Speaker,
that is what all this is about.
Yeah, none of these demands. What Mike Johnson here points is very important. That you hear these stories of just, okay, well, let's get this one thing done. But the Democrats keep piling on all these other demands that it almost sounds to me like they don't really want. They're asking so many things that the Republicans can never give up. Why would they give up? They're basically giving up on the one big beautiful bill. That's what Democrats want. They want the Republicans to repeal their own signature legislation that took a lot of effort to get passed. And so it's such a big ask that it can't happen. It's almost setting this up to continue indefinitely. Very frustrating stuff. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam & Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Important point about this healthcare fight is an opportunity for Republicans. And Robbie, you are exactly right about this. The Make America Healthy Again movement has a perfect opening here, doesn't it? If the Democrats actually want to fight about healthcare, why don't we talk about it? And why don't we fix it? This is what they don't want, right? They don't want a solution here. They want an outcome that creates a single-payer system, which creates more bureaucracy, more graft, more patronage, jobs, more power, political power for Democrats. More entitlements always favor the Democratic Party. And this is critical. The Make America Healthy Again coalition is critical in this era to win 26 and to win 28. In particular, it was hugely important to the 2024 coalition. And so this is it, right? We can talk about this. We can talk about making America healthier. We can talk about improving our healthcare system. And in part, I think a critical portion of this is getting the government out of medicine. Everywhere the government is involved, I mentioned the VA in the last segment and talking about how members of Congress ought to be forced to treat at the VA, that it would be a surefire way of getting the VA to work better. Well, if Chuck Schumer and Marjorie Taylor Greene and anybody had to go and Rand Paul had to go to the VA to get treatment, then you watch it would get really better, get better quick overnight. But I kid, right? It's making a fair point, but isn't the VA, after all, an example what happens when the government is in charge of medicine? Nobody, I think, with a straight face argues that it's a good system, that it's a well-run system. Sadly, right? So I think here whether it's Bobby Kennedy and frankly others around him should tackle this as a problem to fix and have the Republicans be the brand that solves the affordability problem. Nobody here is pretending that one, America's healthy, and two, that healthcare is in fact affordable. And they ought to make it a public process. Back in, Nancy Pelosi's in the news. Remember with Obamacare 2010, Nancy Pelosi says, all you have to do is just vote for it and you'll find out what's in the bill later. Just vote for it now and then you'll find out
what's... You've heard about the controversies within the bill, the process about the bill, one of the items. But I don't know if you have heard that it is a legislation for the future. Not just about health care for America, but about a healthier America, where preventive care is not something that you have to pay a deductible for or out of pocket. That prevention. It's about diet, not diabetes. It's going to be very, very exciting. But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it away from the fog of the controversy.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So it's like, yes, it's like one of those, it's secret Santa gifts. You don't really know what's in it until you open it. Surprise! Look at premiums now. This is what happens when it is harder for the marketplace to compete, to do its thing. Competition always drives down cost. We know this. And yet, Obamacare created obstacles, multiple obstacles to insurance companies competing. I'll tell you one very easy, can I tell you one very easy fix to healthcare would be doing away with these, the protectionistic, magical state lines, borders. I mean, that if it's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Nevada versus California versus, Connecticut. I mean, just in keeping it, defining the marketplaces to, being state specific, let them compete nationally. And then, of course, again, I think what will eventually, by the way, if nothing gets done, what will happen is more and more people will opt not to have health insurance. And this will be, one of the problems with Obamacare is, of course, it forces you to buy health insurance. It forces you to buy it. And if you don't buy it, you get penalized on your taxes. But it's gotten so expensive, people will take the penalty. So it's a tax as determined by the Supreme Court. But what will happen is then people will be showing up at doctors paying cash. And there will be an entire new system out there of doctors just accepting cash. there will be a system where a doctor says, opens a practice and says, you know what? You will pay me $2,000 a year and then pay me per visit, some small amount. And people will go, yeah, that's a better deal than that's a better deal than whatever hell my insurance company's covering. And then I will pay for catastrophic coverage in case someone in my family gets cancer or gets hit by a car. Right? These are some workable solutions. And I generally speaking, as a customer of the healthcare, we all are, right? If unfortunately some more than others, you become. We all need medicine. We all need healthcare. Some point in time. I as a consumer don't like to be separated or be too far away from the person that I'm paying. And the insurance company is a layer in between. I'm not the customer anymore. And yet there is I think, no more important service that I receive, that my family receives, than the care from our doctors and from our healthcare system. And yet this is the one thing that the government has sought to separate us from, because I'm telling you, the objective of that Obama had when he put this thing in, when the Democrats put this in, was to eventually turn us into Canada or Great Britain. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Folks, more of the What's Right show up next. Hang tight. We got this. We'll get through it. I promise. Unbelievable. I don't know if you saw this, but there's some drama in Minneapolis among Democrats for a change. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, welcome to the program. So, if you know, in Minneapolis, there was a Somalian running to be the next mayor, and he lost to the more moderate Democrat named Jacob Frey. This is an interesting situation. So the guy who was running, he kind of looked like a Somalian pirate named Omar Fateh. And I don't know, Robbie, did you hear this, the reason why he lost? He apparently lost because a significant number of Minneapolis Somalians, okay, felt that this Fateh guy was part of the wrong clan. And I don't know how you pronounce this. I guess he's part of the Darude clan, and the other clan is Hawiye. There are, shocker, apparently, clan wars, clan conflicts in Somalia. This is why it's a war-torn country. Now, the Democrats, the globalists, brought this mess into the country, and now these Somalians can't even agree amongst each other and are openly fighting because one person is from the other side, from the wrong clan. Apparently, Ilhan Omar, who endorsed Fateh, is part of the Darude clan, okay? So the Hawiye community leaders feel that they got this, they won this fight in supporting Jacob Frey and getting him to win over Fateh. So they're now gearing up for a primary challenge against Ilhan Omar. You can't make this stuff up. And see, this is the problem, right? This is the problem. You want immigration. You want good immigration. You want the kind of immigration that improves this country. How does bringing in sectarian violence into the U.S. from outside of our borders help us? What is of possible benefit to any of this? Once upon a time, we were a nation of immigrants that came here, settled in the U.S., put up American flags, and called it a day. They brought their food, some of their customs, but it went into a giant melting pot. In fact, that's the word that we would use in school to then justify multiculturalism. Oh, it's all good. It's a melt. And I always remember arguing this, and I did this from a very young age. I said, wait a minute, multiculturalism, because I went to elementary school, middle school in particular, high school, we'd have multicultural day. And I said, I don't like this. We're all Americans. And a teacher would say, well, Sam, we're a melting pot. We're a nation of immigrants. I said, well, wait. We're not melting into the pot if then we're spending all this time talking about how we're all different, right? And that's the problem here. All of these different groups, all of these different immigrants, and look at these, got these two clans from Somalia that have taken over Minneapolis, one side versus the other side, and they're fighting amongst literally, can't make this stuff up. Where is the assimilation into America, into American culture, into American traditions, into the American way of life? Where is that? I don't see it happening. And that worries me, right? So this is, I'm just saying, this is the issue, right? This is the problem. So it's just one observation from this election, and one takeaway, and it potentially does create a wrinkle for the Democrats, because they're going to need all the unity they can get, and if one side of this sectarian struggle prevails over the other, it risks alienating politically the other side. But again, I think, in these blue cities, it's enough Democrats to still get people across the finish line. And the Jacob Frey guy, this is the one who was front and center of the BLM movement in the wake of George Floyd. He's the guy who knelt at the gold casket of St. George. I mean, this guy's he campaigned, he spoke, he delivered speeches, speaking Somalian. So none of this is particularly heartening, okay? But I'm just pointing this out. Now have you heard about this interview, this TV interview with one of the released hostages, Ron Braslovsky? He was a security guard at the Nova Music Festival. He was there. He was working the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, was taken hostage. And he's been giving a couple of interviews. One of them just got released. It's in Hebrew. I'm not going to play. I'm going to play read some quotes here from it. Because we have lost sight in all this pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine activism what these barbarians did. They took this guy hostage. They put him in a tunnel in the ground. They blindfolded him, double blindfold, so they couldn't see a single bit of light. And they kept him that way for weeks and weeks. They gave him bathroom breaks 3 times a day. He had to hold his pee for hours. He cut down his drinking water too. Then after that, they came into his makeshift cell and they said, look, we're gonna, I know we've covered your eyes, but we're gonna also need to block your ears. And the terrorist walked into his cell, took off the blindfold, and he was holding 2 stones, rocks, okay? And this is what the guy here is describing, Ron Braslovsky. He goes, he took off the blindfold just to show them to me, just to show me the rocks. He was happy and grinning. He said, look what I brought you. I found these outside, looked for them just for you. So he takes one of these stones and starts to put it in his ear, but it didn't fit very well. So he took a nail and a hammer and started to force it in with the nail and hammer, pounding it into his ear canal. Ron Braslovsky screamed. Can you imagine the amount of pain he's feeling? They left those rocks in there, deep inside his ear canal. Retied the blindfold, wrapped it all around him. He still has hematomas from this. They tied him up so tight, blood stopped flowing to his head. His skull, his brain, everything was throbbing. He felt his own blood seeping inside of his body. They didn't feed him. Then they cut his bathroom breaks completely. Stones in his head. This went on for 2 years. This is just a glimpse. This is not even all of it. This is just a part of it that I'm sharing with you. Because there is no equivocating about how evil these monsters are. These people, these Islamists, what they are capable of. Matter of fact, it's so bad that this guy, this Israeli Jew, said that this is worse than anything that the Nazis ever did. He says that in a part of his interview. Now, I would argue maybe some of the experiments done by Dr. Mengele and others in the medical units were pretty horrific. But the average death in a concentration camp was merciful compared to what these people endured. Yeah, what side am I on? Whatever side they're on, that's not the side that I'm on. And every single Democrat in this country that supports these people and makes them their cause is a vile piece of trash. There is nothing that will change my mind about this. And this is the evil that we're fighting. And in the middle of this, we hear Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson go, but the Jews. Shut the F up, you clowns. You make me sick. Hope I've been pretty clear about that. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Back in a moment, folks. Don't go anywhere. I'm glad the Trump administration is fighting the SNAP ruling. What an absolute load of bunk this is. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, of course, you've probably heard that the Trump administration was ordered by a district court judge in Rhode Island to pay SNAP benefits, to continue paying them essentially indefinitely, and ordering the Trump administration to find the money to do so. The whole thing is nonsense. Now, this issue, by the way, I know people have been talking about it. The issue is that there were some contingency SNAP funds available. The Trump administration agreed to release that. And this is an additive ruling, a secondary ruling requiring that the Trump administration then find money from Section 32, from WIC, and even other places to continue funding SNAP. And it's nakedly partisan, right? This judge simply wants to continue funding SNAP. Why? He knows that SNAP, and this is going to be the one soft part or soft vulnerability for the Democrats, is not to fund these social programs, and it will create some blowback for them politically. So this judge is what they're hoping will happen is that SNAP gets funded indefinitely. Meanwhile, pressure builds on Republicans with their constituencies, right? For example, the military. Now, well, first off, the constitutionality of it. The power to appropriate funds comes from Congress. You can't a judge cannot order the president of the U.S. to take money from one program and put it in another. That's just not how it works. Now, the second part of this here that I think is absolutely wild is that there has been a proposal floated by Democrats to fund SNAP, and it was rejected. And I always describe constitutional powers as when the president and Congress act in unison is when the presidential power is at the greatest. Now, a judge, the judicial branch of government, can't order spending of money, let alone cannot order the spending of money when the branch that is in charge of spending the money hasn't greenlit or has actually voted against spending the money in a certain way. The argument, and I haven't read the entire pleading here, or the arguments that the Trump administration has used in its emergency filing and its appeal today that was filed in appellate court. But I suspect one of the things they'll say, if Congress intended to fund temporarily SNAP, they would pass a law to do so. They would agree to it. And that's the best argument, right? Your Honor, if it was meant to get resolved, it would have gotten resolved. It would have gotten paid for. So anyway, this is kind of, I think, where we're going with this. And this is, of course, the vulnerability that the Democrats have, because if SNAP benefits run out and ultimately don't get covered and don't get paid, there's going to be hell to pay. So but the courts, again, notice when we talk about partisanship among these judges, notice that this judge did not order the payment of the military, did not come and order the payment of wages to air traffic controllers, just to SNAP recipients. Absolutely gross. My gosh, so bad. All right. I know it's been a week, a lot of wild stuff happening. I know. We'll see how this whole thing shakes down through the weekend, and of course, next week with the holiday. So we will not. Yeah, Robbie and I will be out for the day on Tuesday, on Veterans Day. Absolutely, yeah, we'll be back. Don't worry, we'll be here Monday, and then we'll be here Wednesday as well. Let me tell you one more thing here that I want to get to before the end of the show. And the sandwich guy, we talked about him yesterday, was acquitted. Sean Dunn is his name. This is the guy who threw a sandwich at a federal officer. He went into court and he said, "I did it." He literally testified that he did it. He did not dispute having thrown the sandwich. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because what is assault? I mean, the basic definition of assault, and again, I'm putting on my lawyer hat here, the basic definition of assault is the harmful or offensive touching of another without privilege or consent. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to cause an injury. It's just, it can be offensive, right? It can be a botherance, and it can be a touching. It doesn't have to be, a cause an open wound or anything like that. This is a common misconception. So they proved their case. This is my point with these juries in Virginia, in Maryland, in Washington, D.C. The prosecutors proved the case. It was open and shut. It was on camera, and the defendant didn't dispute it, and yet he was acquitted. Now, what is that called? It's called jury nullification. And this is where jurors decide that the law is not just. And their juries are allowed to do it, but a lot of judges will instruct jurors that they can't do that. Now, where did jury nullification come in after January 6th? When people were giving lengthy prison terms for nothing more than a trespass. Where literally this guy throwing a sandwich at another human being did more than some of these people who spent years in prison. This is my problem with January 6th fundamentally. The reason people went to prison is because the jurors that tried them were not jurors made up of jurors of their peers. That's the fundamental issue. The people that tried them are the same lunatics that voted at an incredible margin for in Virginia, a Jay Jones, a attorney general who was openly advocating for the murder of young kids. People that came in from Tennessee, that came in from Nevada, that came from California, that were Republicans, conservatives, red hat wearers, Trump supporters. These people never stood a chance with these Washington, D.C. juries. And my question for you is, at what point does our system become no different than some Bolshevik show trial, some Stalinist era judicial panel that will convict you no matter what, as long as you're an enemy of the regime, and that will, of course, acquit you or not even charge you in most cases if you're a friend, an ally, or someone that has a political convenience? This is where I get worried. This is where I get concerned. It still means that we ought to do the prosecutions. I'm glad this guy went to court. I'm glad this guy had to hire a lawyer. I'm glad this guy had to spend money and was inconvenienced. The sandwich thrower, by the way, was an employee of the Department of Justice and was fired in the wake of this incident. And no, the cop isn't harmed by the sandwich. It's not the point. We were admonished that we are a nation of laws. These are people that told us repeatedly that Republicans didn't care about law enforcement, which was, of course, a rich accusation from the same crowd that sought to abolish the police. So here we are. We're going to have some real trials. We're going to have Comey go to court. Real evidence. Be interesting what happens. Comey will get the benefit of being tried by his peers. Many, many Americans do not have that same luxury. It's a shame. All right, have a good one, folks. I'll see you on the other side of the weekend. Over and out.